Hello, hello. This is the third episode recorded in English of our Nominal Pressure Cast, the cycling medicine for the cycling butthurt. And of course, as it's medicine, it has to be administered by a qualified personnel. This time it's me, the self-proclaimed pseudo-professor of cycling, Piotr Klin. And today, well, we say medicine for cycling butthurt, but today we'll be talking about not medicine, but supplements. So a bit on how taking what might seem like basic supplements can get you in trouble. So I'm talking to Brian Abers, who unfortunately found out what MK622 is. WADA told him that. So I met Brian at Aguas Calientes doing my hour attempt. He was there with the Sprinter Brigade, the Gummy Bear Monsters. So today I'm talking to Brian about how he got into cycling, how long he's been in cycling, and now for how long he won't be there. And unfortunately, as you will see, it wasn't by his own wrongdoing. So take your pens out, because we'll also be you'll be taking some notes, and we'll be telling you how to minimize the risk of getting in trouble for use of contaminated supplements, which should be glutamine or whey protein or creatine. So basic stuff. We won't be talking about, some pre-workout weightlifting, crazy mixes and substances. So buckle up and enjoy the bumpy ride.
Dobra, starczy, dawaj zmianę.
As mentioned before, we have a cyclist who's a bit lost on a bike because he's more of a weightlifter, as all sprinters are. Brian Abers, that I met in Aguas Calientes. He was the man who took me off the bike after an hour of going in circles. Hello, Brian.
How are you today?
Oh, it's way better than on that August day in Mexico. Brian, first of all, a few words on, because you've been in cycling for longer than I can remember, because when you started cycling, I was like somewhere around -4 years old. Tell us how you got to coaching, to racing, national races, Masters World races, and then we'll go to your maybe unwanted part of the fame, the cycling fame.
Sure. I started bicycle racing in 1984, essentially to recover from an American football injury. I had injured my knee. Back in the dark ages of that point, they repaired my knee, but there was no real PT specifically for it. So my orthopedic guy told me to get on a bike. I started going to class a little bit later every day because I kept getting a little bit faster. Spent years and years racing. At some point, I discovered the track, because if I could hide in a field long enough and they forgot about me, I did really well in the sprint at the end, and discovered that I could skip all the riding around and just go straight to the sprint. So I started track sprinting again decades ago. At some point, I got a little bit long in the tooth and decided that, okay, well, I'm not terribly competitive on the elite side anymore, so maybe I should look into this coaching thing. Got into coaching. I coach athletes on the track. I've coached them at the national level, the international level. Still continue to do some racing, obviously, and it's kind of a side gig for the coaching at this point. I get an opportunity to go to some of these races. I like racing. I still like racing my bicycle. So I race my bicycle and have spent a lot of time coaching and working on that coaching side of it.
So basically, practice what you preach. You want to show that you are kind of on the side, not only as a coach, but also basically training and competing with the guys and gals that you might be coaching as well. So that,
well, it's certainly a kind of a it keeps me relevant in the coaching side of it because I'm in the middle of these races, and again they're almost all masters races at this point, but it does keep me relevant in tactics and how it feels to go out and do a kilo or a pursuit or something along those lines, and just allows me to have a better grasp of what an athlete's going through while they're doing these things.
Now, because as you mentioned, you're mainly looking at the sprint side of things, so you're kind of cutting out the boring part of cycling, where spin the legs for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, and then you sprint. And of course, for track sprinting, so the Kirin, the sprint, the kilo, all of those things. I used to call you the gummy bear brigade, because you would just turn up on the velodrome, do like 2 laps, and then sit, chat, and have Haribos, like half a kilo of Haribos. But of course, then that means that sprinting is like a really specific type of cycling, where there's a big part of it is also based around muscle growth. It's also based around gym work, which is kind of not, it's like a real gym work, as you might say, not the kind of core stability that cyclists would do. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. Big component of track sprinting is gym work. I would say probably at least a third of all the training that sprinters do is in the gym, and that goes pretty much year round. Heavy weights, really trying to build that muscle growth to turn it into explosiveness on the bike.
So, and that's where I'm kind of course, that's why I'm asking it, because that's where MK622 comes into play, which I would imagine I know, and now a big part of the kind of cycling community found out about, because as you said, a lot of gym work, a lot of focus on muscle and explosive power, which means a lot of supplements,
Sure.
and now the supplements that as they sometimes they say, it does what it says on the tin. Well, clearly not in this case. So maybe can you tell us the story of what happened and why won't you be racing until 5th of October this year?
Sure. So in September, I was at Masters Track Nationals in the U.S., and I got pulled for drug testing, went into drug testing, didn't think anything about it. I'd been tested, I don't know, at least a dozen times in probably the last 7-8 years, I would guess. I've never really actually sat down and added it up, but it's been a fair amount of time. So this was just another routine day at the office, as it were. Went into drug testing, gave my sample. About 2 to 3 weeks later, I get a call from USADA telling me that I tested positive for the banned substance, ibutamoren, or and I don't even remember the numeric designation that you rattled off, but same exact thing. And I had 0.011 micrograms per milliliter in my urine, and that's essentially 11 trillionths of a gram. I was a bit shocked, obviously. I was not expecting that. Sent in a bunch of samples, or a bunch of supplements, basically cleaned out my cupboard, sent them to my lawyer that I had to retain, and they sent it to a lab. They found this ibutamoren in a tin of glutamine that I was taking, and the process with USADA subsequently started. We started searching for a sealed container of the same batch number, and ultimately, because I purchased this particular glutamine in July, and it was probably November or December that we started really looking for a sealed container of the same batch. The odds were apparently not terribly good, because they were never able to find one. And subsequently, USADA offered me a 12-month suspension, which, given the financial cost of part of this, I just simply couldn't afford to go through arbitration and arbitration was basically going to potentially result in a 6-month ban, but not necessarily. And at that point, I accepted the 12-month ban, and here we are.
And in terms of, because you said that you struggled to find a sealed container, so in a case where you would have found a sealed container, could that lead to no suspension case?
Potentially, certainly a further reduced suspension. Essentially, in U.S. anti-doping, it starts as a 4-year suspension. So taking it down to a year was significantly better. But yes, if I'd found that sealed container, the likelihood of reducing that would have been significantly higher.
So now, as you said, and that was something like, because people reading it, my first thought, to be honest, reading that cycling news bit is, I was thinking about like some of those, I don't even, because this is like gym stuff, but I was thinking like maybe some kind of a pre-workout, because I know that those are like the horrible mixes where people get to then lift a lot of iron. But here you say that it's something that is normally used for what? For joint kind of damage prevention, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of an anti-inflammatory. It's an amino acid. Basically, it's a recovery supplement more than anything else. And I don't take, was taking, past tense, beta alanine, whey protein, creatine, and glutamine. And I think that's all I've taken. Been taking it for years. It's nothing wild. It's certainly not one of those fringe pre-workouts or energy drinks that you've never heard of that you find in the convenience store at midnight. This was a pretty basic supplement. One of the things I learned from all of this, though, is the base product for most of these things, creatine, glutamine, whatever, what have you, typically comes from a couple labs in China and shows up in the United States and presumably Europe, to go to the local manufacturers of this stuff, and it's all basically coming from the same place. One of the things I was having a conversation about with a friend of mine today, who's in the medical field, pointed out that she's noticed kind of a decline in the drugs they use medically since COVID. Since COVID hit and the manufacturing process has gotten a little wonky. And I'd never really even considered that until I'd had the conversation with her. But certainly the standard of testing prior to it getting to the United States or Europe, presumably, is not the greatest. We have what is called NSF certification, and I don't know if you have that in Europe or not, but
I think it's like informed sport labels on that. There's like a thing like informed sport certified drug doping free kind of label on supplements.
Okay. Yeah. So sort of the same thing. It sounds like, and the problem with that, even, that's certainly a safer one because they actually do batch testing once they've completed, whatever ingredients they put into a container of whatever you're purchasing. They do batch testing. They list the batch testing, and it's significantly safer provided you got that batch. But they don't have to test, at least in the United States, to get that NSF certification. They don't have to test every single batch. So that leaves it open for some contamination, in the batches they didn't test. And one of the things that I discovered again was that when you're mixing huge containers of a powder form, contamination can actually show up in one part of the powder form, depending on the mixing, the mixing technique and the thoroughness of it, can show up in one part of a batch, and the other part of the batch tests perfectly clean as well. So, I guess with all of this information and things I never thought about, I never gave it a thought where, creatine or glutamine came from. It came from the health food store that I picked it up at. But and that was mistake one for me. And mistake two is probably not doing my due diligence as much as I should have when I purchased that. I'd used that product before. I trusted that product, but it wasn't the typical, and I feel like I've even been tested with that product, but it wasn't the typical glutamine I used. I was out of town where I purchased it, and and I'm just speculating here, but one of two scenarios seems to make sense: that I either ran out of glutamine while I was out of town and chose to get this one because it was essentially a smaller container. As stupid and ridiculous as that sounds, it was a smaller container, so it fit in the suitcase better, so I could travel with it. Or they simply didn't have the one that I'd been using pretty consistently at that point. So, and what the thing I hate about all of this is, I don't want to try to speculate, and I don't want to try to make excuses for any of these things. And, I would like to just completely stick with the facts, because I don't want to sound like, everybody that's ever been in this position, oh, woe is me. If it wasn't for this stupid product, I wouldn't be here. Because ultimately the bottom line of all of this is I chose to purchase that product. I chose to ingest that product, and there's simply no denying that, when I got drug tested, it was in my system, so, what I would like to emphasize, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but because when you say that, to a certain extent, with all the the stories that sometimes we hear from pros, or people, how they got, like, I don't know, EPO in their system, that they just confused the syringes that their mother had for some treatment, and they just took a wrong syringe or whatever. So that's like a different level here. When you say, well, you bought that product, but it's kind of, we are getting to a point because of COVID, because of shortages in the supply chain, that people are kind of half testing what they are putting into the product. So where do you stop? Because when you say, okay, you bought a supplement, there wasn't anything that was banned by WADA on the label. So it's a case of, I'm getting sparkling water, I drink it, and maybe I never drank alcohol, and it turns out that it's water, but it's like a seltzer with 5% alcohol, and then police stops me driving the car and says, oh, you were drinking alcohol, and you said, well, no, I bought water. So if that label that says it's water, and it's like water mixed with alcohol, because that's your case, you cannot, I feel that when we are looking at this case, you cannot say, okay, I've purchased the product. No, you've purchased what was on the label, and you got something else. So then that's where we kind of getting to a point of, as I'm listening to you now, like the safe, well, it sounds like if you want to buy supplements, it's always good to keep buy two. Like go to those stores where they get buy two get one free or something like that, so you can use one and then leave the batch on the side, sealed container, so if something goes wrong, you have the sealed container, and you can go and prove that this one was the one that you're using, and even though it's not on the list, you got something which is banned. Because at that point we are getting to you cannot, because now it's supplements, but what if it happens with you, I don't know, as I said, drinking like a Red Bull or whatever drink, and then all of a sudden they have a bit of a wonky testing protocol of what they put in, and this is kind of I think like a slightly scary case from my point of view.
It is a scary case, and the some of the stuff I learned, subsequent to this starting, is exactly that. No, really, and I keep saying to everybody that'll listen, the only really safe way to ensure that you're going to race clean is, raising your own food and sinking an artesian well, in your backyard, and and not taking anything, which is a rather extreme, ridiculous, way to go about life. But in terms of the supplementation itself, I would, if you're going to supplement, yeah, that's exactly what you have to do. You basically have to go. You have to go online. You have to find, a certified manufacturer of whatever supplement you're looking for. You have to track down that particular batch number they tested at the store that you purchased this stuff at to make sure that it matches, because that was the one that they actually tested. So that's your best shot of it being clean. And what I would recommend at that point is taking those little Ziploc bags that you'd stick your kids' carrots into, the little tiny small ones. Take a scoop of that, label the batch number, label the date, label the manufacturer, all of the information you can put on that bag, throw it into a corner, because you can't just keep buying two of everything, because I probably went through 4 supplements, big tubs of supplements every 2 months. So, I've got 24, now I've got 24 giant tubs laying around the house that I'm having to use as furniture because they're taking all the space up. That's probably the better way to do it. It's highly impractical, however, so the other solution to that in collecting those tiny little bags that take up a lot less room is like for me, going to nationals, going to worlds, those are the 2 events, and I could be tested anytime, and I'm certainly going to be tested anytime they have an opportunity now. I'm waiting for them to knock on the door, to test me at the moment, but joking. But going into that event where they're going to be tested, I would basically take aside, everything that you have been taking, that you've, done your due diligence with, that you're trying everything you can to make sure is clean. Put that aside, go find another batch, of tested substance, go buy 2 of those, 2 months out from your competition, to absolutely, guarantee those are clean, and then take the second tub in a sealed container and stick it aside that way. That way you've only got 4 or 5 unopened containers that are essentially worthless to anything other than, a potential proof that this was a tainted substance.
And then, of course, hopefully, like you said, after nationals, things like that, you try to train with other people, and once you've used that, and maybe you're finishing your season, you will always find somebody from, who's doing like cyclocross or whatever, who will need those supplements anyway, so you basically can sell it on, and it's not kind of like gathering dust. And that's because now I would imagine you found out how much testing of those supplements costs, and I would imagine that's like a hefty bill to test, because that also is not practical. Maybe if you run like a professional team where they are buying 100 kilos for each month from one supplier to basically have it tested to make sure, like I'm talking more on the side of like professional teams nowadays, that they could basically just send that we are getting 100 kilos of whey protein whatever from you guys, but we need you to test it to make sure that that batch is clean so we can start using it. But that's more kind of like on the professional side of things, which one kind of would imagine that now it has to start happening, or is happening, especially with, as you mentioned, the wonky testing procedures of Chinese labs.
I would think so. I would think the one risk to that would be, again, that mixing process. If you buy 100 kilos of whey protein and you put it into a giant tub, for all of the athletes on your professional team, you're still running the risk of having, a small pocket of that with a contaminated substance. Additionally, then you don't have a sealed container to back you up at that point, right? So, yeah, it's a scary world, and I remember, and this is one of the things I feel really stupid about, because, I've been to the USADA WADA seminars, and, they're always preaching, stay away from the supplements. Supplements are bad, right? Don't use the supplements because you could run into a problem with, like this. And trying to take due diligence and being cautious with it, it's almost unfortunately, a bit of a gamble, right? It's like going surfing in an area where, sharks hang out, as long as you're going surfing with somebody you can swim, you're probably okay. But sooner or later, there's, your odds are going to be against you, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you say that, they always like WADA, USADA, UCI, and so on, they will always say, watch out for supplements, watch out for supplements. But at the end of the day, you know it, I know it, like masters are not what sometimes people think amateurs. There are people who sometimes know more than the pros about, like supplementation and so on, because they have to look at that for themselves. They don't have a team of people to do it. And, we live in a world where there's a guy winning Milan Sanremo possibly because he had like bigger disc brakes, rotors, and a dropper post, and it's just like looking for that marginal gain. And here we are saying, yeah, don't use supplements. But then you go to the championships, you go to whatever competition, and you feel, oh, maybe if I took what is not banned, I would have, I would go 500s faster on the sprint, or I would push 5 watts more on the hour, or whatever. And then you just basically, you feel like you're leaving something on the table. And then we are not in the business of, we are not doing those horrible trainings just to leave stuff on the table, especially as it's, allegedly it's fine, it's okay for you, it's nothing banned, you won't get any health issues. It's easy to say, but it's harder to do. It's a bit like telling, I work at uni and I tell my students, you have a report, I give you now the report and start working on it throughout the year. And we all know that they will work on it for the last 3 weeks of the year. So, it's easy for me to say, but I know how the world works.
Sure. And you're exactly right. I mean, there's a very clear benefit in the world that I live in. To things like to beta alanine, and being able to squeeze just a little bit more, before you completely explode in a kilo or a 500, a very long, anaerobic sprint. Protein, obviously, I'm trying to build muscle and trying to do it the right way. And, I could use at 56, I could use all the help I can get. To do things like that. And the glutamine, same thing. I'm smashing myself in the gym, and if I don't figure out a way to recover faster, it's going to be 3-4 days before I go smash myself in the gym again. And I've always wanted to do this the right way. This is one of the ironies of this to me is that it's like I've always, preached, no, we've got to, I've told my riders, if you ever get popped for something, it's not USADA you have to fear, it's me that you have to fear. And, here I am, the only one out of, all the athletes I've ever worked with and been around, being the one getting popped. So, it definitely leaves you with a different perspective, but yeah, it's a quandary, right? Because I don't, as you very succinctly pointed out, I don't want to train really, 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 really hard to not have, some semblance of success with it, right? I like racing my bicycle. I enjoy the people I race with, and that's kind of the big thing for me, but I'm going to be completely honest and say, I like beating those people while I'm doing it, because that's a lot more fun than not beating them. So, that's why you put the work in.
And that's one thing, like, beating competitors in like sprints or keirin, but I'm talking a bit more like on my side, it's like doing the hour, which is like you against, I was kind of attempting my own record in Mexico, or Ashton, who basically as well, his goal was to beat the world record, but he wanted to go sub 4 minutes, and he went sub 4 minutes by 700ths of a second, something like that, 700ths or 300ths of a second. And again, he uses supplements. and now he might go there, and without those supplements, he might go 4:01. So great, he has the world record. He gave 100% of what he got, but then his preparation wasn't 100% because he didn't use legal supplements, from the fear that people who should be doing the work and should be selling you a product that they are telling you they are selling, they just throw some random stuff into it, and they'd be like, oh well, we'll see, we have a bit of that's white powder, whatever, let's just mix it and send it off. This is as you said, it's kind of I think it's living with the not knowledge, but being aware of the fact that even if you do everything right, you might end up falling into the hole that people who don't do the things that they should be doing right, basically doing them in their own way, like in this case supplements. Basically you just fall into a trap of a company which I would imagine they just cutting costs or whatever, just sending more powder quicker, and the powder isn't what it should be. So it's as I say, I think it's a gamble, one of those many gambles that we have to take.
Sure. And it's for me, in the situation I'm in, I don't need to continue racing my bicycle. I like racing my bicycle. For you or Ashton or any, for most of the people that race their bicycle at a high level, it's going to be devastating if you get hit with something like this. And you're absolutely right. You mentioned me picking you off the bike. Well, I picked you off the bike because you couldn't stand up, because you spent an hour grinding yourself into paste in your hour. And you don't want to do that and leave something on the table because it sucks 5 years out of your life to do something like that in an effort like that. And you want to make sure that you've covered every legal thing you can do. It's booties, it's aerodynamics, it's supplementation, it's rest, it's hydration, it's recovery, it's all of those things, and they all have to be at the very pointy end of the spear. They all have to be as flawless as you can make them, and yeah, you have to do it with a flawed system that you can't really trust, and to anybody that would listen to me, I would tell you to do everything. If you're going to supplement, I would tell you to do every single thing you can possibly do every single time. Don't get lazy with it. Don't go, oh well, they're out of this, I'll just buy this instead. Don't do that, because you end up sitting here having a conversation about it if you do. So and I don't know that, I'm certainly not going to tell anybody not to supplement. I just really want to emphasize to everybody that I would jump through all the hoops you could possibly jump through to ensure that you're doing the best thing you can, because the contamination is out there, and you want to avoid it as much as possible, obviously.
So basically keeping track. So if you have, like in Training Peaks, you have your trainings. Now you know that you need to track your supplements. So keep those, those small pouches of the supplements that you're using throughout the year, especially before big competitions. Just buy 2. Look for those offers, but no, they're kind of under the counter. Just look for the offers 2 for 1, or buy 2 get 1 free, so you can keep 1 container sealed, because then that can save a few months of your racing life. And as I say, I think that we can both agree, don't stop supplementing. Just get those measures, and like with everything, you will need to just accept that small level of risk that you might be, even as you heard, even using simple supplements. It's not some kind of a sprinter specific pre-workout mega pump extreme. Is just it's just normal supplements that even us time trialists or masters road racers take. So because you mentioned, just to finish off, because you mentioned that you used to play the football where don't use feet, so American football. So the question is, will Tom Brady do it for the 8th time?
I would never, Brady drove me crazy as a football fan for years and years at the Patriots, and when he went to the Bucks, I was much more tolerant of Brady, but I would never bet against the man.
So you are so if you are crazy, so you're either a Broncos fan or New York Jets or Miami? What's the?
I am actually a college football fan.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty ambiguous to the pro teams, but I do like my college football.
Okay, so that's you went too deep for me. Unfortunately, I stop at the NFL level. Cool, splendid. So, I would say keep coaching, keep training to then start racing on the 5th of October, and then on 5th of October we can both celebrate because it's end of your suspension and it's my birthday. So there you go. We can drink for that.
I will take you up on that, sir.
Splendid. Thanks for that, Brian.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Podnominał cast. Lek na kolarski ból dupy.
O Jezu, dobra, już popuszczam.